Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast. I'm doing away with the formalized intro at the moment because my busy executive colleague, Mr. Finton Costello, is busy being an executive and probably doing something with his hair. I'm one of your hosts, your only host today, John Bruford, and I'd like to start by saying how magnificent, not just in bed, but how magnificent our sponsors are. We've got a wonderful collection of people. We've got the beautiful, beautiful EveryMatrix with their OddsMatrix product and their two recent acquisitions, making them the center of the universe right now. And we've got Optimove, who we've said many times are gentle and caring lovers, and number one in the CRM software management business for the iGaming industry worldwide. And last but not least, we have Clarion Gaming. In an unconnected move, I'd like to introduce our guest, Mr. Alex Pratt, who is the MD of Clarion Gaming.
It is correct. And obviously here for pure editorial integrity, not because we're a sponsor.
Well, funnily enough, I recently wrote an article about editorial integrity. I'm expecting it to come out anytime soon because I wrote it for one of your publications.
The irony.
I know, right? I might have to go and just add a paragraph after recording this. Something along the lines of, I'm freelance, I'm very much for sale. Yeah, that'll work. I put that in my bio. Alex, it is it's middle of November as we record this, right? Ice is coming pretty fast. So, how's it going?
Yeah, good. You'd think we'd be worried at this stage, and we're not. So that's positive. I think, look, we got a lot of the stands and exhibition and that side of things was sewn out quite quickly, which helped a lot. And then those last few stands sold out a few months ago. So there's kind of not much left on that side. So it's all about attendee now and then delivering the experience that we've told everyone we're going to do for the last 18 months. So all the pressure's on there. I think we opened registration maybe a few weeks ago now, and that's it's small numbers at this stage because everyone leaves it so late, but it is tracking in the right direction 100%, which is good.
Yeah, so your only worry now is the actual doing part.
Yeah, we just need people to turn up, which would be useful.
Go wrong? Well, you say that. There's a lot of events out there now. And they're all on a grand scale and they're all in nice places and all of that. And I mean, it's a hell of a time to be having to go through such a sort of big change, different country, different venue, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I know obviously Clarion has good people involved, and you've got you've got a shit ton of experience of doing this, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, you must be not nervous necessarily, but there must be some apprehension there, despite the experience you've got, to be making a change this size.
Yeah, no, I think there's been apprehension all the way through the process, particularly around moving it. If we weren't moving it, I think we'd be less worried. But I think because we've done everything in the right way and along this journey partnered with the industry, and actually people like Eva being based out now in Barcelona, building relationships out there as well to help kind of bolt that growth that we need to see. I went into this period of time, this kind of where we have registration, worrying, but still secretly confident. I think the big worry and the obvious worry that everyone would probably voice is is that UK audience going to come across the pond and come to Barcelona? We fully expect to lose maybe 10, 20% of that UK audience, but then actually replace that with Europeans, but also we've got a big contingent coming over now from LATAM, but also obviously that local Spanish market as well. And so far, looking at our data, it's all going to plan. Anything can go wrong, but if we look at registrations, they're up by a ridiculous amount at the moment because we're at a low number. It's like 53% year on year. It's not going to, if it's 53% by the time we get there, we're going to have a problem. It'll be a nice problem, but it'll be a problem because there'll be over 100,000 people in the show. But the number one registered company is still the UK. So actually they are coming and the right people are coming. So it will be the small things now. Like, can we deliver the experience that day zero, which we now have on a Sunday? What does that look like? What's that going to feel for the audience? How are they going to interact? I think for the first time, we're now controlling the hotel stock, so we can see when hotels are booked and how many, and see what nights, so we can see that actually people are coming in on that Sunday. So we don't have to. I was worried that people were flying on the Monday and that first morning of the show will be dead, but actually we can see that a vast majority are coming in on the Sunday. So it is worrying, but I think when you've got brands like ICE or IGB Live that have history and pedigree with them, that you've got customer support, it helps a lot with keeping you up at night.
If there can be a
plus sponsoring this event. I think if we hadn't sponsored this event, this podcast, we'd have a huge problem. We can definitely attribute the success and growth we're having in our event business through the single investment we've made in this podcast.
I think that's a very fair comment that you make. We don't like to claim these things, but we're very happy for other people to claim them on our behalf. And it's all about the visibility and being able to come onto episodes and hopefully spout some buzzwords, because here comes your buzzword opportunity. Your buzzword opportunity is what can people expect from the Barcelona experience?
That they can expect an experience like no other. No, I think the big change for me is that the event traditionally is sat within four walls in the east of London. I think when it comes to moving it to Barcelona, it gave us this huge opportunity, not only to introduce new features, look at new sectors, expand the show, because we were wall bound in London. So actually adding experience, like whether it's outdoor gardens or really investing in stuff around sustainable gambling and new tech and startups, but actually the ability to then broaden it beyond those four walls. So actually integrating with the city itself. So day zero will be on that Sunday, which I've referenced before. There'll be cultural activities, networking activities. There'll be a hub within the city where everyone can network and meet, which won't be your traditional exhibition. It's more leaning towards that consumer experience. So for me, it's that step change from being the biggest event in the world for gaming to actually the biggest and best experience in the world for gaming. And I think people will really feel and notice that difference when they come.
Well, I think we said last time you came on, Barcelona compared to London is such a compact city. And it's pretty easy to get around. There's an awful lot that you can do in walking distance of a lot of places. And that does give you a lot more scope because, of course, around Excel, and I'm not dissing Excel because I think it's a fantastic venue because I had a lot of experience of Excel because that's where the London Marathon Expo is, where you have to go get your race number before race day. But around Excel, there's not a lot. I think it's fair to say.
Although saying that, have a look at, if you fancy following Excel on LinkedIn, but have a look at their press from yesterday. So they're building, they're building and investing, and we knew they were investing in this huge extension, but a lot of it's around building I've forgotten what they call it, but around experience style events and permanent exhibitions. Like they have Disney, they've now got the Friends experience, but they've also opened yesterday this whole waterfront. So all of that side of Excel that faced the river is now restaurants and bars, and they're slowly starting to understand that actually you're right. There was the hotels and then nothing, and the Fox. But now actually, because they're leading towards generating and attracting more and more consumers to the venue, they need to then deliver a better experience. So I think you'll see when we do IGB Live, that show will open up onto the dockside with all those restaurants. We'll bring a boat up, so we hope to try and replicate there the experience you have in Amsterdam with the beach they have at the Rye for Excel. But yeah, definitely you step out into Barcelona, there is a lot going on. There's noise, there's food, there's amazing bars, amazing restaurants, there's the beach. And it's small enough that actually I'd be surprised if you don't say hello to a random stranger. They're not there to attend ICE. That's the challenge. Let's say 1 in 3.
You didn't mention the kebab shops. There's a lot of kebab shops in Barcelona.
Is there? I have not tried those yet.
Well, they know that they've got a lot of British tourists, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we'll add it to the guide.
I haven't. I haven't had a kebab in Barcelona. So maybe next year's the year for that.
One for the list.
Maybe they have them in a different way. I don't know. It'd be good to, because like you've got your major F&B brands worldwide, but they're all slightly different for their regions. Like, McDonald's is this homogenous idea, but actually they are slightly different in different areas. And I went for a while trying to sample KFC in different countries. God, I've just remembered. So one time, right, I was in KFC in St. Petersburg, and I was drunk out of my brain, and I was sitting in this KFC, and I'd ordered everything pretty much. I spent all day traveling, and I'm sitting there and reading a book, and there's two girls on the table next to me, in their mid to late teens, and they must have thought I was, well, God knows what they thought. But this is going to sound so bizarre. I don't think I've told this story on this podcast before, but I might have, because I do that.
I haven't heard this one. I've heard a few.
So my friend Juliet, who I shared a flat with, had been trying to quit smoking for quite a while. And she always said that the part of the day that undid her good intentions was the drive to work, because she'd invariably end up caught in traffic, and she would roll and smoke a cigarette while she was waiting for traffic to clear up a bit. And that was the one that she was really struggling to give up, and so was struggling to give up. And I had this bright idea while sitting in St. Petersburg KFC, because I saw that one of these girls had a pair of mittens on the table, and they were beautiful. They were like orange and this deep red, and they looked as though they'd been hand knitted. I mean, they were just really, really nice. And St. Petersburg does get pretty cold. And it's like when you're in a massive country like Russia or China or whatever, the further you are away from a major city, the less likely it is that somebody speaks English. And your best bet generally is to find a teenager, because they may have learned or be learning English at school. Generally. I say teenager, young adult of some variety. Or for pop culture reasons, they might know more English. But anyway, I'm in St. Petersburg. Nobody speaks English at all. I'd ordered by pointing at pictures. So I end up negotiating with these two girls who don't speak any English to buy the mittens from them. And basically, I had no idea what I was doing. And I ended up emptying my wallet and giving this girl all of my money. Which, it wasn't a lot. I wasn't in Russia for a long time. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but for a pair of mittens in a KFC, she did very well, I think. So I got the mittens. And then the next morning, I woke up and realized that I didn't have any money to get a taxi to the airport or anything at all, or any breakfast. I'd literally
sold the
emptied my wallet and just been like, take it all, take my money. But in a happy ending, my flatmate and an old friend Juliet used them in the way that they were intended and quit smoking. She wore them as driving mittens, didn't have a morning cigarette, and hasn't smoked since. In fact, I saw her just a few months ago on my birthday, and she.
Does she still have the mittens?
I believe she does.
Yeah.
But I didn't ask. I'll ask. I'll bring the podcast.
So those mittens literally saved someone's life.
Maybe they did. And we don't know what the girl did with the money in St. Petersburg. Maybe she settled an old drug debt. maybe I saved two lives.
Was not murdered. Yeah. Brilliant. Well done.
So some good comes out of the gambling industry. And being shit-faced drunk in a strange place. But anyway, Alex, I don't know why you got me onto that. Finton wants me to ask you what's it like being a legend?
It's
or maybe
a lot of pressure,
he wants you to ask me that. I don't know. He's unclear.
I mean, how do you find it?
I think it's generally okay. I think a degree of obliviousness to the world around you really helps.
Do you use your legend power well for good?
I generally, I can't say I always have, but I think I do now. I try to be a positive influence on the world. I try to leave it in a better state than I found it. How about you?
Yeah, do my best. No, we definitely do my best. You really sporadically now going into this topic. But yeah, no, I'm a massive believer in karma. Always have been. I think good things happen if you are good. And so far, touch wood, my life seems to have gone quite well in a way that it shouldn't have probably gone. And I think it's because I'm nice. So I will continue to be nice and kind and hope that the world continues to be nice and kind to me. But yeah, positivity breeds positivity.
I do believe that you
message
get
of the day.
You give out. What I find is
100%, and especially to be on a serious note, especially in this industry, like it's a massive industry financially, actually from an employee perspective, the tax that we pay, all these things, but at its core, it's the smallest industry ever, and it's very easy to not do well if you're an arsehole. But if you're fairly transparent, kind, and generous, I think actually you'll always do okay. There's a lot of good people.
Hey, people are still putting up with me. What can I say? I find that I tend to get misinterpreted by people. I was told recently by somebody that I got a face like a slapped ass and I'm a miserable bastard, and I've got to take issue with that because I'm not a miserable bastard.
I was going to say I don't think you're miserable. Yeah,
I don't smile a lot, but that's because I'm not.
It's just dry humour. It's a different style of humour.
But also, it's this idea that you're a fucking performing monkey that's got to keep everybody around you happy by plastering a smile on your face. Fuck off. Good luck with that one. But anyway, that's by the by. So what do you? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on in the industry right now. There's a lot of there's some fairly big changes, and there's some things that, I mean, I think personally, some organizations just completely fucking things up. So, like, I mean, if you look at the Pogo's decision in the Philippines, I mean, that's quite a big deal. And some companies are divesting themselves of some of the more, like the Bally's Group is selling its Asia-facing internet business, and it's like, that's funny, that didn't get mentioned much before. Which is focused on Japan, if I remember right, and things like that. But also, so much noise is around sweepstakes and social casinos in the US. Is that like as an event organizer, because there's a conference as well?
Yeah.
Is that something that you're looking at? Is that part of the program? Because I mean, a lot of the industry seems to be taking an almost a binary approach to it, which is, well, we're not doing it, so it's bad.
Yeah.
As opposed to, we're not doing it, but hey, we could help them sort their shit out, and we could bring them in.
Yeah, and I saw someone actually on LinkedIn the other day saying it's just really interesting. I forgot his name, XEGR, Elijah's great journalist, always quite controversial, English guy. Anyway, someone will find it. But he said it was quite interesting what he was talking about, the interpretation of what grey is. Grey suddenly become black or illegal, depending on what company you work for, or just this guy, he talked about the evolution to iGaming 2.0 and the interpretation of what is right and what is wrong and in these more tier one businesses that suddenly they're very clear cut for their own reasons. But yeah, look, from our perspective, it's really interesting. I think knowing what's going on in our sector, regardless of that we put on a conference, is massively important. So we've tried to put a process that's been going, for about a year, really simple, but everyone in the company, when they hear anything, any kind of insight, we have a form. All they have to do is write a sentence, or they could write 10, whatever they want. That then feeds constantly into this huge, I guess, database of conversations, because actually in reality, at ICE, we have, 50 employees there. They're talking to customers, and actually, if we can collate 500 bits of insight, it's really interesting. So something like sweepstakes, we could start to see about a year ago more and more conversation. Obviously, it then peaked at G2E, and everyone's talking about it. So having that insight allows us to design our products, and that could be the conference, it could be on our website, so like the articles that we're writing, it could be how we see an emerging trend or an emerging segment that actually we need to think about. Do we need to design the exhibition floor for that? Should we be going after stands in that way? Should we be marketing differently? So I think, having a finger on the pulse, which is not always easy, but trying to understand all those nuances and insight and things that are changing in the market has to affect what we do. Look, and some are really obvious, like at ICE we have the World Regulator Forum, and we have the Legislator Assembly, where you do have the biggest attendee base of regulators and legislators at any event or any public gaming event in the world. And actually that's where we can talk about all these things with the right people in the room. And then obviously that then extends into private rooms and private meeting rooms, and sometimes around a bar, where the world is put to rights, but hopefully things are improved within the sector. So it's definitely important. And I think it spreads across everything that we do. It's interesting though. It's definitely interesting.
But are there any, I mean, not with just the trends in sort of conversation, in the things that people are bleating about. Does that equal trends in who is coming to exhibit and who is coming to visit? I mean, does that have does that change things?
Definitely. Definitely, and I think I wish I had the data here, but it's really interesting. If you look at even what they do within the show, or what they attend, or where people go, and a lot of that data we can now track. But if I look at the last few years, and I'll dig it out, and we can have a conversation at another time, unfortunately, but we moved from doing Vox, which is now the World Gaming Forum. It used to be your traditional conference format, lots of different sessions, registered for 3 days. A few years ago, we changed that. So it's workshops that zoom in on specific areas. So safer gaming, entering new markets, iGaming customer journey, lotteries, and cybercrime is a new one this year. And it's really interesting to see what's becoming more popular, what's going up and down. So safer gaming, for example, 5 years ago, it would be one of the lowest attended, and I'm making up the 5 years, but one of the lowest attended. Last year, that was the top two. I can't remember if it's number one or number two and the people are paying to attend that. They're not going because I feel like I need to tick a box and be seen to be in this room. They're paying to be in there. Same with customer journey, went from like number 4. So you can start to see actually where the priorities are in the market. And but those workshops also a direct result of what's happening in the industry. So cybercrime is an obvious one. And actually it's not just gaming, it's across any market that touches online, is becoming more and more important. Certainly even from Clarion's perspective, we're constantly focused on that area. So I suspect that will be highly attended. But yeah, I think it definitely influences everything. We'll see it on the exhibition floor as you start to see a trend towards a new technology or a need. Like, look at the amount of companies we now have that are focused on KYC or on safer gambling. So many more than there were 4 or 5 years ago, because actually it's not an option anymore. It's a must, and you have to focus on that in order to succeed. And so the exhibition floors kind of reflected that. But so's our investment in that zone. But I wouldn't take the glory for that. That's people like Eva, who's been a voice of safer gambling, of DEI, of technology and development for years in Clarion, and she's pushed against many walls to get that into ICE. And then actually we've seen it grow rapidly because of having people like her that are passionate to bring those things to the front, because she knows what the customers want. I just take the glory by coming on a podcast.
No, that's fine. That's fine. All of your team can do the foreplay. You just come in for the orgasm at the end. That's just how things work. I know this. I've been a fluffer. So, assuming that Barcelona all goes completely to plan and everything is great, how does that develop in the future? Because you obviously you've got a roadmap. You can't work for a corporate behemoth, a beautiful, benevolent overlord like Clarion Gaming without having a long plan.
Yeah, no, and we do have a long plan, thankfully. To get bigger is the point one. And I guess we need to plan to look. The other thing is we've managed the growth this year, and I think I've said it before. So the floor plan's growing at about 20%. We could have easily grown it 50% with the demand that was there, but actually it's about managing the ratio of attendees to the size of the floor plan. So we're looking, I think, at 55,000 attendees this year. So part of that growth will come through new audience acquisition. So for me, it's about really driving ICE to be this global event, which it has a brand name for, but sometimes isn't reflected in the audience that comes. And we know that. We go to it, we can see most of them were UK or European. Actually, this year, I think we'll see a big influx from LATAM, but there's opportunity to start to look towards Asia, to start to look towards Africa. So I think some of it will be about just expanding the audience from our core market. We then, I think, can start to look at segments that we're not necessarily in at the moment, or not in an aggressive way. So that could be lottery, it could be going deeper into esports, it could be going deeper into something like the street market, which obviously is a lot bigger in places like Spain and in Italy and mainland Europe. So there's lots of options. I think it's just making sure that we do it, and I know it sounds like just a line from a playbook, but doing it hand in hand with the market, making sure it's something they want and that's supported. And often that comes from the exhibitor first, and then the buyer will follow. Whereas in traditionally, actually, in my experience, it normally comes from the buyer and then the exhibitors follow. But it seems in gaming, it tends to be led by the exhibitors. So we're kind of working with them quite carefully as we look to expand. But yeah, I think and actually the last segment is around technology. So I think there's two parts to that. One is the startup ecosystem. Innovation is a huge pain point and bugbear in this sector. We see some of it, but we don't see enough. So I think what can we do to help encourage that? So not just being an event and putting in a startup zone and a pitch competition, which we will do, and we'll do it better than we've ever done it before. But how do we work with local organizations, particularly in Spain, Catalan and Barcelona? How do we work with the government? How do we work around grants? How do we use our legacy fund to help drive some of that innovation and change, so we can be a catalyst for growth in our sector? Because there's many startups that are servicing other sectors, and I saw that when I went to Mobile World Congress, that could totally supply the gaming sector. It's just not on their radar at the moment. So part of that's about educating it, and that's also in the traditional technology space. So we know that people like Oracle and Salesforce and Amazon Web Services and all these big companies, right down to the kind of small to medium, are either targeting and working in the gaming sector, but not intentionally, or they're actually not at all. And actually, so what can we do about bringing those companies? And we can leverage some of the assets Clarion already owns. So we own the biggest technology center in Europe, called IFA in Berlin, huge, over 100,000 people. We can leverage that, but we can also leverage relationships that we're building in Europe now. So I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago, let's call this the Ever Show because I keep mentioning her, but she's worked bloody hard this year. But she's been working with an association out there for technology businesses in Spain, and it culminated in a conference where we spoke to those technology companies about gaming, about ICE, about the opportunity that's sitting right there in front of them. And they don't have to exhibit, but why don't it come along? Why don't it come along and look at this sector? What can you do to change it, to innovate it? Where can you see opportunity? I think that's also really exciting. So I really believe ICE has this opportunity to scale far beyond what we first imagined. And I sound like some pastor on the front of in Wembley, lecturing. But I really believe now we've started to unpick the size and scale, that if we can truly create a global event and one that actually delivers experience as well as ROI, I think the opportunity is massive. And when Stuart Hunter, the MD of Live, we have a lot of MDs, started sort of talking this 100,000 number for ICE, I thought, my God, this is just bloody what you see all event companies do, like throw a number out, and some believe it, some don't. And you see it all the time. But actually, I start to think 100,000 people is not unrealistic. And that is mental. From someone that's sort of grown up in this sector, to think you can have 100,000 people in a hall, it is crazy. But then actually, I think our sector deserves something like that. And I think part of our role is showing that this is a technology business focused on entertainment and leisure, and actually a business that's focused on that should have an event that reflects it, which is exciting.
I did think sometimes people pull figures out of their ass. Not saying that Stuart did that. I mean, I don't know Stuart, and I've never seen his ass. But I remember working for a publisher, and every year they'd come out with their sales targets, and all they did every year was add 10% on. And you're like, yeah. Well, you're obviously not paying any attention.
It's always a very specific number. It's always, 25,000 people turned up. But it's like, right, you didn't go up, you didn't go down. You did the best forecast of attendees I've ever seen in my life.
It's just pulling numbers out of your asshole.
Yeah. But it's a bugbear of mine, because the problem is, once you get over sort of 5,000 or 6,000, it's very hard to understand how many people are at an event, because it's then vast and they're in different rooms, and there's still this focus on volume, which is a shame, but it will change. And I think as data comes in, as being able to create transparent sort of, not just for exhibitors, but for attendees as well, actually be able to show them what they're achieving, then actually that focus on quant becomes less important.
I think one of the things that's interesting in exhibitions in the event space is that so often you're having to deal with old buildings or buildings that have been repurposed. And so I mean, Earl's Court's a great example. I mean, what a fantastic building, but also how utterly impractical. And so a lot of people kicked off when you moved to Excel. But like I said, I already knew Excel, so I'm like, this is going to be great. This is a really, really good venue. But then there's the associated issue, because I also used to work for, probably oversharing here, I used to work for a pornographer in the Canary Wharf area. And that wasn't my favorite job. Really wasn't. Anyway, it kind of, you've got a building that's a great size and is actually really nicely thought out in terms of the central concourse and all of that, in and out, and entrances and stations both sides, really, really good. But the issue is the area around it, because to be that big, it's not in central London, etc. And I remember, have you been to the Dome for a concert or anything like that?
The O2?
The O2, yeah. The Millennium Dome.
Yeah.
Now, it's a great experience. Like, I thought it was going to be ballless, soulless, but the acoustics are absolutely bang on. But most importantly, the way that they built it and planned it is toilets, restaurants, and bars all the way around the outside. No matter where you come in, there is a toilet, a restaurant, and a bar. So there's no clustering. It's easy to get in and out. All of the walkways are really wide. It's like, holy shit, they thought this through. And so often we're not dealing with big custom built places. We're not dealing with anywhere that was built in the last 25 years generally. I've always been a big fan of Messe München, because I used to go to the big outdoor industry event there. I mean, that used to be an airport, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And now it's an event space, and it's a spectacular event space. But it's also quite a lot like walking around an airport.
Yeah.
Which is not my favorite pastime. So, there's not many custom-built modern spaces for events. And if there are, they're not usually central.
Certainly in
surrounded
Europe.
by. Yeah, totally.
So, yeah, it's difficult.
But it must make planning stuff difficult for you.
Yeah, I mean, luckily
if you're
it's not
thinking about the holistic experience.
Yeah, and actually we brought in a consultant, because you call them a consultant, but we brought in a company that I think works on things like Cannes Lions and other sort of B2B, B2C festivals about how do we deliver the experience. And they came along to IGB Live, and actually they were like, actually, you do this, you do that. How do you create the journey from here into the city? And it's a totally different way of looking at running an event. I think that's the journey we're going on. That it's very easy to put a load of stands in an exhibition hall, put some banners up and call that a show. Whereas actually the evolution and that journey, and look, it's probably the same as when you design a casino. The thought and the planning and the science behind it is so important. I think that's the journey we're going on with certain exhibitions. Some are just trade shows where they buy, sell. Some where you're trying to create and bring a community together. You've got to start thinking in a different way. There's a company we were looking at acquiring pre-COVID that didn't happen, unfortunately, but they brought in these people from the music festival market. And actually, in the end, they acquired their company. There's only two of them, and they're all about how you stage these big music festivals. And they bought the company, and it isn't just about sound or acoustics or staging. It is that whole experience and journey. And it isn't necessarily about spending more money. It's about just really small details. It's really interesting. I saw a guy speak the other day about, look at something like Disney. So when you book to Disney World, the journey starts at that, when you've bought that, or actually even the marketing before, but when you buy that ticket and they start writing to you and the kids are excited and they send you some bits, and even when you're arriving, you can see the castle in the distance and you still haven't even got there, and they anticipate that whole journey from start to finish. Okay, it's really annoying being in the queues and all that stuff, and it's bloody overpriced, but you're kind of forgiven, or you forgive them. Or the W Hotel, if you're stuck in a queue, they'll come out and give your kid a little teddy bear. It's just things that B2B events don't think about. And I've seen a guy say, like, we're literally, you get off the tube at Excel and you step through the doors and it's like smash straight in your face. No one's like, you haven't been on any journey. There's been no, as you said earlier, there's been no foreplay. There's been no romantic dinners and excitement around that moment in time. And I think B2B events have to, and particularly after COVID, where people want experience, have to think differently about what they're delivering. Because I think it's more than just, and actually remote working and not seeing your team, it's more than just a hall now with some carpet, or sometimes not with carpet.
You make a compelling argument. It's not for nothing that you're a sponsor of the industry's finest podcast. We don't let just anybody sponsor, but if just anybody is listening, sponsorships are available. Alex, just a couple of by-the-by sort of questions at the end. Did you see the recent Cobra Kai episodes?
Do you know what? After coming on your podcast, or maybe even listening, and unfortunately Netflix will not attribute this as a win, I started watching Cobra Kai and I got to, I think I'm on the third, and I need to get back into it, but I've been distracted by Narcos. I've got into, but one episode into season 2, and I really like it. It's a very good recommendation. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know how their relationship's going forward. But it's
all
brilliant.
To play for.
It's so good.
The second lot, as we record this, the second lot of episodes is just about to land this week, I think. Second lot of episodes in the final season. And then the final season will conclude next spring, I think. So that's pretty
there's loads of seasons, isn't there? I've got loads to watch, I think.
I think this is season 6. But it's not like back in the day when you'd watch something and there's 22, 23 episodes in an American show. You know, that's the best thing about streaming is that it's stories take as long as they take and they don't have to be dragged out. How I Met Your Mother, I'm looking at you. Which How I Met Your Mother has to go down in history as one of the most disappointing shows I've ever watched.
I know, and I watched that whole thing from start to finish.
I've done this twice.
Was it an umbrella or something? I can't even remember.
There was an umbrella involved. It was
something annoying. Yeah.
But I watched all of that just to see how it ended. I mean, I could have just probably watched the first one and then watched the last one. But I wanted to see if I could stick it out because there's a lot of episodes. And the other one I did just to see if I could. It's like self-flagellation. I watched Gilmore Girls.
Oh, right. My daughter's obsessed with that, I think.
It's not great. I think that's as polite as I'm going to get with that. It's not. It's a bunch of people who are assholes who are then assholes to other people, and those people are then assholes to them, all dressed up in shiny clothes, kind of. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, sounds like what my daughter watches.
It's not great. It's not particularly. It's not particularly witty. It's not. Do you know what I mean? It's just. And there's a load. It does one of those things that I really hate when you have quirky characters who are just there to be quirky. And actually, Friends did this early on, where Phoebe was just the quirky character that would say the quirky thing. But they fleshed her out a little bit. But Gilmore Girls is full of these quirky small town characters. Yeah, it got a bit much, but I did it. I made it all the way through. Do you know why? The reason that I started watching it was an actor called Edward Herrmann. Who's generally pretty fabulous in anything he's in. When I saw he's in it, I'm like, I'm just going to check it out. And I stuck with it because of Edward Herrmann. Then I stuck with it because of the actor whose name's gone clean out of my head, who plays his wife in the show. who was even better than him. And ultimately I stuck with it for the mother character, Emily, I think her name is Emily Gilmore. And I stuck with the whole series and the dreadful year in the life addendum just because of Emily, because I wanted to follow her story because she was magnificent. And sometimes in a series, you'll find there's one person who you just want to know how they go. You just want to know how they turn out. Anyway, by the by, I was just asking, what's your favourite horror film?
Wow. I don't really watch horror films, but like 2 nights ago, I watched this thing, which apparently is a genre called body horror. Who knew? Called The Substance, the new one with Demi Moore. Oh my God, it's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Jesus. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I saw it
it's
at the cinema
horrendous.
a couple of months ago.
Apparently half the people walked out during the cinema.
No.
I've avoided horror for like 30 years of my life after 40 years, 30 odd years. When I watched Candyman, it destroyed me for months, years even. And then suddenly I'm watching, Demi Moore, this will be nice. Oh, it's nominated for an Oscar. Oh, lovely. Oh, my God.
Tony Todd, who played Candyman, died the other day.
Oh, no.
I mean, that was a sad loss because he seemed like a really good guy. But so The Substance, if it didn't have Demi Moore in it, if she hadn't bought into it so brilliantly, it would have been crap. As it is, it lacks any subtlety. It's a breeze block to the face. It's not particularly engaging. That's the thing, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, this is a completely new take on blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there with two mates who are both well into their horror films as well. And we all walked out and we're like, well, yeah, that bit was just like that in that other film. The other bit was just like this. We'd just seen it all before.
I just closed my eyes and sung a lot.
Now, I happened to be in it was like a surprise screening thing. I knew it was going to be a horror movie, but I didn't know which one. And it was for a movie called Terrifier 3. Which is a bit of an odd choice for a surprise screening, given it's the third film in a series. But I was really excited about Terrifier 3 because the first two are tremendous. A lot of fun. And the third film, my God, it goes to extremes. Now, this is an audience solely comprising horror fans. It's a surprise screening for a horror movie. Everybody in there is going to like horror movies. 9 walkouts. There were only about 35 people in there. 9 walkouts. Wow. 5 of them in the first 10 minutes.
God, that's not for me.
That is going some. We were sitting there counting. They were just like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I knew there was worse coming as well.
And Daddy's Home 2.
But I just had to ask. Okay. Well, I'm shit out of questions, and this is all you get for your sponsorship bucks. So I'm just kidding. Integrity. It's all about the integrity.
Not kidding.
Not kidding.
Cool. No, brilliant. Thank you so much.
No, I'm hoping to be at Ice. I
was going to say, will we see you in Barcelona? Have you booked your flights and hotel yet?
No, I haven't, because I haven't got any money.
You need to get on that. No, I got BA return for like £108 or something. This is the time to buy.
Yeah.
Do not leave it, because although to be honest, there's so many flights, but get on that. You'll only regret
anybody
it.
that wants to sponsor my Barcelona trip, sponsorships are available.
Will you try and record? Are you going to do recording live there again, or was that a lesson that you never want to repeat?
No, I would really like to do that. Cause,
I thought it worked really well.
It was just really interesting. And actually the space that you guys provided for it was just a complete bonus. So in a way,
need to find out. What was her name? Janet. Is it Janet?
Oh, the lady in the office.
Yeah, that you talked about. I think it was Janet.
Fan.
The two ladies working together were
just the two of them. The lady that she was there, and they've worked together for years and years. When you were talking about the small details, people like them are the small details. And I'm not belittling them when I say that, but they know the show, they know the venue, they've got a complete can-do attitude. And that's priceless, because very often you're at a venue, you go and talk to somebody, ask them a question, and you just met with, I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. I think at any experience. I went to Pizza Express the other day, and the best waitress ever. Couldn't wait to email info at Pizza Express. But she just made, and look, it's just Pizza Express. It could be it could be the same. They deliver the same people. But actually, she leveled it up by just being pleasant and knowledgeable and kind.
Yeah. Makes a hell of a difference. You know, I've always said, I've had a lot of shitty jobs. We've got to find Janet and her friend. Yeah. I've had a lot of shitty jobs, but I've always believed that even if your job is a shitty job, it doesn't mean you have to be shitty at your shitty job. Although that said, I was working at a pub in London, right? This is about, when would this be? About 25 years ago, I was working in the Brook Green Hotel. And they had this really fancy coffee machine and nobody knew how to work it. So they brought somebody in to train all the bar staff on how to use a coffee machine. I used to hate making coffee. Oh, no, I was shit at it. So there was that. I can't claim that I was good at that.
But you could get better if you wanted.
Do you know what? If we'd been serving coffees all day, I would have gotten better. But when you get one coffee order a week, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That was a terrible job. Terrible job. And you could argue that I was terrible at it. I'm just kidding. I was pretty bad. But that was where we devised the points game, Alex. The points game, where you if somebody orders a drink, you get a point or a set of points depending on how far away you can get from their drinks order and still have them accept and pay for it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
This was back before people got really allergic to everything. But like somebody ordered a Diet Coke, you could give them a full fat, for example, or a slimline tonic, you could give them a full fat tonic, for example. But I saw with my own eyes, I saw my colleague Colin, I saw somebody order a pint of lager and lime and a bunch of other stuff, and he bought him a pint of cider and blackcurrant instead. And the bloke's like, what's that? He's like, cider and blackcurrant you ordered. He's like, I ordered a lager and lime. Colin's like, no, you didn't. And the bloke took it and drank it.
Such an English thing to do, though. I would take it.
Colin's Scottish. I think him being Scottish gave it that bit more authority. Like, I'm Scottish, therefore I'm almost certainly right.
No one messes with Braveheart.
So it was a hell of a day. Hell of a day. I learned so much. Anyway, Alex Pratt, MD Clarion Gaming, thanks for coming on. Thanks for telling us about ice. It does sound really good. Like you're utilizing a beautiful, beautiful city. And
yeah, can't wait.